another great webinar in our partnership with Haiman+Hogue. You know, we're going to talk today about why it's essential to have COVID ice packs ready. And I know there was some confusion, and I should have said this to you just a minute ago, Fred. I know there was some confusion about the title. People weren't understanding ice pack. In fact, on the last email blast I sent out, I put above the flyer what Sheila had sent to me, which was the whole write-up of what the acronym stood for. But we welcome you all. We're recording it, so if after this, you know, anybody you know needs to have a copy of it, we'll be sending that to you in our second follow-up once we get it uploaded to YouTube. But Sheila, do you want to talk about CEUs?
Sure.
And if we could advance the slide, Fred, that would be great.
Yeah, go to the next slide, please. Yes. Welcome, everyone. Yes, this is now, you're the first people to see it as a CEU. This is an important information and we want you to have it, but we also want to give you credit for watching it. So it's very simple to do this. After this is over, I will send Marty the 2 sheets, or did I already send them to you? I may have already sent them to you. But regardless, you can email me, Sheila at Haiman+Hogue, and I will send you 2 sheets. The sign-in sheet, well, and actually I'll go ahead and send you the conflict of interest form too, but the sign-in sheet and the eval. The eval and the sign-in, if you will fill those out, scan them back to me, then I will be more than happy to send you a certificate. And this is good for nurses, social workers, assisted living managers, and licensed professional counselors.
In addition to that, I want to let you know that that we have started putting a evaluation form through Google that will pop up when you close out of the webinar today. I realized as we reapplied for funding in December that I used to ask all the time because I was providing the CEUs, and I realized I didn't have all that information that I need to have as we defend our funding going forward. So there's going to be another evaluation. It should pop up as you close out today. I know some people have had some problems with that. I don't know why it works for some and not for others, but I will include that evaluation link also in the first follow-up email. So the first follow-up email goes out only to the people that are actually show up and are online today and watching the webinar. The second follow-up email will go out in about a week to everybody who registered, and that one will include the link to the recording of today's session. So in the first follow-up, you'll see the link to the forms for Sheila and a link to an evaluation for us as well. So Sheila, I'm going to let you introduce Fred if you'd like and get us going.
Certainly. It's a perfect day to do this because today, in case you don't know, which you wouldn't know, today is my 5-year anniversary with this company. I am Sheila Williamson with Haiman+Hogue, proud to be the Director of Community Services. I got introduced to Fred Haiman many years ago, the founding partner of Haiman+Hogue, when he came out here from El Paso, and we've been friends ever since. But he is the founding member of Haiman+Hogue because he wanted to do, he probably will share his story as to why he does what he does, but that is what is the important why for Haiman+Hogue, because it is, you know, you can have many reasons to start a business, but this one is very strong. And I do believe it's a blessed reason, and that is exactly why I'm here. Fred has been an attorney for more than 25 years, but he was a police officer before that. So he has a lot of experience in emergency situations and in these documents that we're going to talk about and how important they are. So there's nobody better to do this, to explain to you what the documents are, why you need them, and what they do than Fred Haiman, my boss. Without any further ado, Fred.
Thank you, Sheila. I appreciate every bit of that. The only thing that she got wrong there is who the boss is, because I know I'm not the boss. Sheila is the boss. I just kind of follow directions. I hope you guys get something out of this presentation today, because I put this together, I'd say about 6 months into COVID. We started realizing as COVID started and the panic of COVID and everything that was happening and the increased illnesses and unfortunate deaths, that a lot of people were calling our office over and over and over again to try to get documents done at the last minute because they didn't have things in place. And so it made me put this presentation together to talk about how important it is that you have things in order before you need them, and your family has things in order before they need them. So that's really what we're going to talk about today, is what are these essentials that everybody should have in place so that we're ready in case of an illness or an accident, or as what we're dealing with right now, COVID. I put together kind of the acronym ICE-PAC because in case of an emergency, your plan should always be current. So you want to make sure that not only you have a plan and documents in place, but you want to make sure that it's current. And what I mean by that is it's not outdated. Documents don't technically expire, but they get less and less effective the older they are. And I get people, it's amazing that I've got clients that have documents from the 1990s and early 2000s that I got them done, so I don't have to worry about them anymore. Well, the one constant in life is change, and that is the same when it comes to these documents and the need for these documents. So if your documents are not current, and what I mean by current is they should be looked at every 3 to 5 years max. And they should be updated usually every 5 years max because of all the different things that happen. So just as important, your family knowing where these documents are. So it's not only important that you have them, but that somebody knows where they are, because I get that all the time. We get those calls where, well, my mom just went to the hospital and I know she put some documents together, but I can't find them. So you've got to be organized at least enough so that somebody that needs them knows where to get them. One of the things that we do in our firm is we provide not only the originals, but we provide flash drives with electronic copies of everything, so that in worst case scenario, we can at least pull it up electronically. Quite often, especially in the medical area, an electronic version will work. So I can email it to the hospital, I can email it to the rehab facility, and they'll take an electronic version. So, but people have to know where they are. And the same thing happens, unfortunately, with death. I get this over and over where somebody passes away and I know dad did a will, but I can't find it and nobody knows where it is. And then we get the issues of, okay, did somebody steal it and they're destroying it because it didn't benefit them? And you get family dynamics that come into play. So you need to make sure that you have them in place and that you have them someplace where people can find them. Now, what kind of things are we talking about? We're talking about having documents in place that can solve several problems. And as this picture shows, most of the problems fall into really two main categories, healthcare and financial. And that deals with anything from Hipaa issues, hospital issues, paying your rent, getting paychecks, you're dealing with your employers, dealing with creditors, home loans, rentals, that kind of stuff. But you need documents that can allow somebody to make healthcare decisions and financial decisions if you can't make them yourself. So unless you have proper legal documents in place, your family members are seen as strangers to you. And a lot of people have a hard time understanding that, well, it's my wife. We've been married for whatever years, and what is hers is mine and mine is hers. And we've always done everything together. And I take care of her and she takes care of me. So if something happens, my wife can take care of it and make all the decisions. That's not true, because wives and spouses don't automatically have a right to make decisions, don't automatically have a right to obtain information, don't automatically have a right to talk to people like a bank that their name is not in the account, or an employer where they're not listed as a point of contact. So a lot of problems can come into place, even with family members. I said, your family has no more right to your medical and financial information than any other stranger on the street. And why is that? For protection, because we want to make sure that you are protected, that you have given permission for people to get your information or to help you out, because not all family members are people that we want to take care of us or know information. Because if there's a person out there that has a perfectly functional family, that everybody gets along and everybody is trustworthy, please put that in the chat, because I still haven't met that family yet. That we all have dysfunction, we all have issues at certain levels. And so these documents are so that we say who we trust, who we want to get our information and to help us out. So it's important to remember that, you know, like I said, not your family members, not even your spouse has an automatic right to manage your money, talk to banks, pay bills, transfer funds, consent to medical treatment or get medical information, make medical decisions for you, obtain medical information, like I said, obtain employment, educational information, or accept money on your behalf. And this is just a minor list of the multiple things that can happen. Sheila mentioned my story, and some of you all, if you've listened to me speak before, have probably has heard this, but this is the reason I do what I do, is because in 2007, I went through a situation where I almost died. I had been fighting a disease called ulcerative colitis for about 5 years. And it got worse and worse and worse, to the point where at the very end of 2006, the doctors came to me and they said, we either remove your colon or you'll have colon cancer. And I was only 42 years of age at the time. At that time of my life, I was a trial attorney. I'd been a trial attorney for about 10 years. And I'm not ashamed to say now, but at that point in my life, I was a very arrogant, a matter of fact, trial attorney who thought I had complete control of my life. And when the doctors told me that, my only question was, how long am I going to be off work? And the doctor said a minimum of 3 months. And I thought, okay, I'll be back to work in 6 weeks. Well, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, because God had different plans. And the doctors messed up my operation. My intestines ruptured. I ended up being in critical condition for 10 days. I should have died. I was in the hospital 37 days the first time recovering. I ended up being in and out of the hospitals and out of work for over 8 months. I ended up having to have 6 surgeries, with the last 2 up in Cleveland at the Cleveland Clinic, to put me back together and save my life. So for about an 8-month period of multiple doctor visits, multiple hospital visits, multiple surgeries, I was completely incapacitated. And guess what? I didn't have my documents in order. And why didn't I? Because I was 42 years of age and I was an attorney. I was never going to get sick and never going to die, and I was in complete control of my life. So why would I need these? I'll get to them later when I get old. And I'm an attorney, so I must think I'm smarter than everybody else, because I don't think I need them. And the problems that I had because I didn't have my documents in place, and let me correct that. It really wasn't the problems I had. It was the problems I put my family through, and the problems I specifically put my wife through was horrible. And the simplest things became nightmares because my wife couldn't do things. I remember being in the hospital and her coming in saying that the electric company was threatening to turn off the electricity because I hadn't paid the bill, because I took care of everything. And I hadn't paid the bill because I'm in the hospital, and she's trying to take care of the electric company, which she'd never dealt with before. And they wouldn't talk to her because her name wasn't on the account. Because when we moved into the house, I set everything up and everything was in my name. She tried to get my medical records at the beginning so that we could apply for our disability policy that I had. And the hospital wouldn't release them to her because I'd gone in under emergency circumstances and had not signed even their Hipaa form. So the simplest things become nightmares when you don't have documents that allow even your spouse permission to get information and help you. So one of the worst things I always say is that whenever you're in a situation, and you especially a medical situation, the worst thing you could ever hear is, we can't talk to you about this. And why is that? Because unless there's proper forms. We all know about Hipaa and how hard Hipaa has made it to obtain medical information and obtain medical records, that unless there's documentation in place allowing that, they are not going to talk to you. And they're not supposed to talk to you. And if they do talk to you, they can be held liable, and they can be held civil and criminal consequences. So one of the things that we do a lot in our office is what I call the College Student Protection Plan. And that is a simple plan for a college student, because most people don't think about it, but you know that when that child of yours that you have been raising and taking care of your whole life, when that person turns 18, they are now an adult. And since they're an adult, you as a parent no longer have a right to obtain information about them or to help them in any way, shape, or form. So that 18-year-old now needs documents, a power of attorney, medical power of attorney, things I'm going to talk about in a minute, that allows the parent to continue being the parent. So my daughter is now in her second year at the University of Alabama, and she's far away from home. And the first thing I did was make sure I had all her documents in place, because it would be a parent's nightmare to find out that your child was in an accident, was taken to the emergency room, you call the hospital, and they tell you, I'm sorry, but we can't talk to you about this because that person, your daughter, has not signed a HIPAA form giving permission of who we can talk to or who we can't talk to. So these important documents can make life so much easier when you're in high stressful situations. Will somebody be able to make medical decisions for me? If I can't talk to the doctors and I don't have what's called a power of attorney for medical, a medical power of attorney, then I have not given my family permission to make decisions for me in a medical emergency. So if I don't have that document in place, who gets to make those decisions? The healthcare professionals, the hospital, the doctors. Now, of course, we all hope that they'll make the right decisions, but not always that happens. That's not always the case. Unfortunately, in today's society, the way we have our insurance system and our healthcare system, a lot of medical decisions are made based on insurance coverage and who is going to get paid for what. And so I don't want that to even a chance of that coming into play. Instead, I want to make sure that I've named certain people in my family the right and the ability to make medical decisions for me in an emergency. Will they be able to make medical treatment decisions? So certain situations, and Sheila tells a story about her son who was in a horrific accident when he was 19. And luckily the doctors talked to them because his situation was so dire, but that's not always the case. So if there's not a person that they legally have a obligation to talk to about medical treatment, they're going to make the medical treatment decisions that they feel is best, or unfortunately that they feel they're going to be able to get paid for because of insurance purposes. So these are some of the questions that we need to ask. Will somebody be able to talk to my mortgage company and be able to continue paying our mortgage? Will somebody be able to manage our bank accounts and our finances and pay our bills? Will somebody be able to break in our lease or renew our lease if we're renting or we're leasing somewhere? Will they be able to sign our tax return and file our taxes if we need to? Or will they be able to apply for government benefits for me if that comes into play? Or maybe I need to go on Social Security, disability, or Medicaid. Will somebody be able to conduct financial business if I own a company or things like that? Or be able to sell my house if we need money to pay for my care? As I said at the very bottom of this slide, and in the worst case scenario, if they can't do all this, they're going to require a guardianship. If you're not familiar with the term guardianship in Texas, a lot of people have misconceptions about that. A lot of times people think a guardian has to do with children. Well, in Texas, it has very little to do with children. In fact, most things that deal with children are what we call a conservatorship, and that's dealt with in family court. But guardianship is for an adult who can't make their own decisions and can't take care of themselves. And that's done through probate court. And it's basically me going in and saying, my wife, my mom can no longer take care of themselves. I don't have any documents in place that give me permission to take care of them. And therefore, court, I need your permission to appoint me legal guardian so that I can continue to take care of this person and their finances. That is a very long, intense, humiliating, expensive process. So I hate it when people call our office and they tell me things like, I just put my mom in a memory care unit and I need to do a power of attorney for my mom. And I have to tell them, no, I'm sorry, but if your mom is already in a memory unit, most likely she cannot sign a power of attorney because she doesn't know what she's signing. And if she can't sign a power of attorney, you need to get a guardianship in order to be able to take care of her. And it goes from a very inexpensive document to a very expensive guardianship. So simple things, and this is things that I see come up all the time, is and I see this a lot with young people like college students. My daughter's away at college, and all of a sudden now she got a jury duty notice. Well, she can't come back for college, and can I call the court and talk to them about it? Do I have legal authority to do that? Or does she have to do it long distance? And if she has to do it long distance, what if they tell her, well, you just need to come in? Well, we need to make sure that we have things to take care of simple things like jury duty, traffic tickets, renewing passports and driver's license, and even car registrations. The things that we do every day in our life that we don't even think about until something comes up and we can't take care of it. So as I said earlier, no documents, no authority. And we want to make sure that that is not the case. So what kind of documents do we need? I don't want to go into real detail on these documents, but I do want to kind of do an oversight of the types of documents that you need to have. And they usually fall into what I call two categories: the living documents and the death documents. And the living documents fall into two categories: your financial documents and your healthcare documents. So first, we're going to talk about the living documents for finances, the financial documents. Everybody needs a statutory durable power of attorney. And now a lot of people think a statutory durable power of attorney is one size fits all. They're all the same, and I can get on the internet and do it, or I can get my brother-in-law's sister's nephew, who is an attorney in Minnesota, he can do it for me. That's not the case. Not all statutory durable power of attorneys are the same. Some are simple, because the one I do for my 18-year-old college kid is nothing like the one I do for a person who has a $5 million estate. So you want to make sure that the power of attorney is drafted for the person that needs it. This is the document we have more problems with than any other document. And why is that? Because this document is only as good as the people you give it to. So for instance, I get sick. I have a power of attorney for my brother to take care of things. My brother goes down to the bank and says, I have my brother's power of attorney. I need to get into his bank account so that I can take care of his bills. The bank is going to take that power of attorney and then do what with it? They're going to run it through their system. They have a legal department. They have rules and regulations, and they're going to run that power of attorney through their system to see if it has everything in it that they require. Now, if it doesn't have everything in it they require, they will not accept it. And if they don't accept it, it's as if you didn't have one at all. So you want to make sure you have a power of attorney that is so comprehensive that there is no reason for any financial institution to deny it. Because why? Everyone has different rules. Bank of America is different than Chase, is different than Wells Fargo, is different than Fidelity, is different than Northwest Mutual, and on and on and on. Insurance companies like Progressive and Geico and all, they have rules. So all of these different places are going to run the power of attorney through their rules to see if it meets their guidelines. And I get clients that say, well, that's not fair. As long as my power of attorney meets the requirements of the law, they should have to accept it. Well, that makes perfect sense. But there's a big difference between the law and the rules. And so we are constantly updating our powers of attorney and modifying them over the years, because of things that come up. We have issues that come up all the time that we want to make sure we add things to our power of attorneys to make sure that they have everything that the financial institutions need. I think our powers of attorney run about 10 to 15 pages long. Now, is that a little ridiculous? Yeah, I think we can kind of say that's ridiculous, but a 3-page document is not going to have everything that everybody needs. So we want to make sure they're comprehensive. So if you get a power of attorney, just make sure you have somebody that knows what they're doing, do it, and they get the most comprehensive one that you need for your circumstances. The second documents are your healthcare documents. We have less problems with these, but you need to have them. And so they need to be have the minimum qualifications, but they need to be from the state that you live in. That's another thing that's very important, is you need to have documents from your state of residence, because every state is different and every state has different requirements. But you want to make sure that you at least have these 4 documents. You want a medical power of attorney, which allows somebody to make medical treatment decisions for you. You want what's called an advanced medical directive. It's also called a living will or a directive to physicians. This is the end of life document where you decide if you want to be kept alive on life support, if all medical means has been taken and carried out and there's no more hope, then you make the decision. I love this document because it takes the decision away from my family, so they don't have to decide whether they should or shouldn't pull my plug. I've decided that. And so I've decided that if there's no more hope, if the doctors say all we can do now is put him on a life support and keep him alive, I've made the decision that I do or I don't want that. That's different than a do not resuscitate order, or what people know of as a DNR. A DNR is a don't touch me order. So a DNR says, if I have a heart attack, don't bring me back. If I'm choking, don't help me and make me breathe again. So most people don't want a DNR. I do DNRs usually for people that are close to end of life, hospice patients, people like that. Everybody else wants an advanced medical directive. And that says, do everything in your power to treat me, do everything in your power to make me well. But if everything's been exhausted and now there's no more hope, then that kicks in of keeping me alive on life support or not. The third one is a Hipaa release form. We all know what Hipaa is. We all hear about Hipaa, and we sign Hipaa forms almost everywhere we go. But you want a universal Hipaa form. You want a form that's good anywhere. Because if I go to my doctor's office and I sign their Hipaa form, it's only good at that office, and it's written in their favor, not in my favor. And so I recommend everybody have their own Hipaa form that is good at any place that they go. So if I go to the hospital after a car accident, taken in the ambulance, and they rush me into the ER and immediately into surgery, I have a Hipaa form that my family can come forward and say, here's Fred's Hipaa form, and we have permission to talk to you about his medical situation. So you want to make sure you have that. You also want to have a declaration of guardian in case of incapacitation. This is a form that says, if I become totally incapacitated to the point where I cannot care for myself, who do I want my guardian to be? So I say who my guardian should be instead of the courts deciding or instead of my family fighting over it. Another great thing about that form is it also allows you to say who you don't want your guardian to be. So if there's troublemakers in the family, or people that just don't get along with, or people you just don't want to burden, you can disqualify them as your guardian. So that's a very important form. Now that form we hope we never use, because if we are using it, that means we're in court to get a guardianship, and we really don't want to have to ever get a guardianship if we can help it, but sometimes it can't be helped. And so we want that form just in case. So now, one of the things I recommend that all of my clients do is sign up for this company we call DocuBank. DocuBank is an online company that stores these forms for you online. And they're mainly for your healthcare forms. So I get people all the time saying, do I have to carry these forms with me all the time? How's the hospital going to know I have them? Well, if you have a DocuBank card, then they'll know you have them, because a DocuBank allows you to upload your medical power of attorney, medical directive HIPAA form, and then they send you a card that looks like this. This card you carry in your wallet, and not only does it give the medical professionals certain great information like what are you allergic to, what medical conditions do you have, who is your points of contact, who do you want to be called if you're taken to the hospital, who's your attending physician if you have a one, not too many people have one physician anymore, but if you do have a physician, you can name them. And on the back of this document, it gives them instructions on how to download your power of attorney, your medical power of attorney, medical directive HIPAA forms, so that you don't have to carry these forms with you and that they can get access to them immediately. Now, I give my DocuBank card even to my doctors. So if I go to my general practitioner or I go to my pediatrician for my daughters or anything, I give them this form so that they can know how to get this information if they need it. So that covers the living documents, your financial documents and your healthcare documents. Now let's talk about the death documents. And they are two separate things, because one of the biggest misconceptions is that the living documents carry over into death. And why I say that is because I get calls all the time saying, my dad just passed away, but I have dad's power of attorney so I can get into his bank account and pay his bills. No, you can't, because these living documents die when the person dies. And so the power of attorney that was good while dad was alive is not good anymore when dad passes away. Now we have to transition from the living documents to the death documents. So the death documents, everybody knows about the will, or what's called the last will and testament. But we also recommend that you do a designation of representative for disposition of remains, which is a long title for the person you're appointing to carry out your funeral wishes. And for those people who want to donate organs for transplantation, etc., we do an anatomical gift form. And it's a much more detailed form than just saying on your driver's license that you want to be an organ donor. And then there's the last will and testament. And the last will and testament is your wishes saying what you want done with your estate when you pass away. Now, everybody needs that minimum of a will, because if you don't have a will, you do have a will, but it's written by the government. And so unless you want to trust the state with your wishes, you need to do your own will. And the will says what needs to be done. Now, wills have problems that a lot of people don't understand. One of the big problems with a will is a will, in order for it to be carried out, it has to go through probate court. It is not automatic. So a lot of people think, well, I have a will and I've named my wife to get all my stuff and she gets the house, then she automatically gets everything when I die. No, the wife has to hire an attorney. She has to file the will into probate. The probate court has to look at it. The probate judge has to examine it and accept it, and then put an order in place saying that the will can be carried out. Now that's a drawn out process. It's not inexpensive. Your going rate for a probate is about $5,000 at today's rates, and it is a tedious legal process. So a lot of my clients, instead of going with just a will, they go with a trust-based plan. And so I'm not going to go into real detail because I could do a whole presentation just on the benefits of doing a trust. But the simple part of it is a trust is a way of holding your property so that it doesn't have to go through the legal process. So a well-drafted trust does two great things. It keeps the government out of your life and it keeps the courts out of your life. And so if I have a trust and I have my property in the trust, so I do, I have my own trust. My trust owns my house. My trust has my bank accounts and everything else. Does it affect my life? No, I still operate my life just like I would if I didn't have a trust. So I pay my bills the way I used to. I own my house and can sell it just like I used to. It's all the way I hold it. And so I always tell people that a trust is kind of like me building you a treasure chest that you're going to hold your treasure in. And you control the treasure chest. You have the keys to it, and you can open and shut it whenever you want, and you can put things in it and take things out of it whenever you want. And so what's the good thing about a trust? Though that treasure chest never gets sick, and it never dies. So if I become incapacitated, my trust has things in it that allow my family to continue to take care of me and to continue to take care of my estate without me having to go into guardianship. When I die, my family is able to transfer the estate without having to go through the probate process. So there are many, many advantages to a trust-based plan versus a will-based plan. And the only disadvantage is it costs more to set up. So you're spending money up front to take care of a lot of things in the future, so you don't have to spend money in the future. So I always tell people the greatest things about a trust-based plan are it saves you money in the long run, but more important than that, it saves so much stress and anxiety and confusion and potential family fights and all the other emotional things that go with sickness and with death. And so I've listed a few of the different types of trusts. There's thousands of different trusts that you can draft for different situations. But your most common one is a living trust. That's one that's put into place while you're living, and it holds your treasure so that you avoid guardianship and probate. There's revocable versus irrevocable trusts, and the difference is can it be modified and changed or can it not? So an irrevocable trust is kind of like the 10 Commandments. It's chiseled in stone and can't be changed very easily, whereas a revocable trust can be updated and added to and changed over life as our lives change. There's heritage trust that we do for our clients, which is building an asset protection for our assets when they pass down to my children. So one of the things that is really important to me is that I want to make sure that when my daughter inherits my stuff, that it's protected and can't be taken from her by lawsuits or creditors or bankruptcy, or most important one to me, divorce, because I don't want my inheritance to go to my daughter, only for half of it to go to my future ex-son-in-law if their marriage doesn't work out. So I can build in protections like that. I can do tax planning. I can do asset protection. There's all kinds of things that you can do with trust that you cannot do with a will. So if you want to learn more information about this, we have other webinars we've done on it, or I'd be more than happy to answer questions for anybody on that. So one of my biggest warnings that I always have to give people is when it comes to these documents, please, please, please do not do them over the internet. The internet has been great for many, many things. It has been horrific in this area of estate planning, because when you buy things over the internet, just like anything else, it's buyer beware. I bet if I asked you all, how many of you all out there have bought some product over the internet only to get it and see that it wasn't what you thought you were buying, or it wasn't of the quality you thought you were buying? The same exact thing happens with documents, because documents have no regulations over the internet. And in fact, we even have a hidden law within our Texas government code that says if you're buying things over the internet, if the product clearly and conspicuously states that the products are not a substitute for advice of an attorney, you don't know what you're getting. So one of the things that the law says is that it is not the practice of law to sell things over the internet. So people like LegalZoom and those companies, they're not attorneys, they're not law offices, they are not held to the same standard as the State Bar of Texas holds me and other attorneys, and you do not know what you're getting. So I looked up after I found out about this, I looked up what are some of these disclaimers that they have. This is a disclaimer from LegalZoom. This is not an attorney-client protection. This is not a work product, and we are not a law firm. And this is not a substitute for an attorney or law firm. This one is Rocket Lawyer, and theirs is even more detailed, but they're very clear about the fact that you're taking this in your own hands, and we're going to give you something, but if it doesn't work, it's on you, not on us. So please, please, please don't ever use the internet for this, and don't ever let your family use the internet for this. Get a professional and spend the money to make sure it's done right. So what else should be in your ICE pack? What are some of the other things other than documents that you need to have in case somebody needs to know it? again, this is just a matter of organization and having things in place so that in case of an emergency, they're easily found. One of the reasons I came up with this ICE Pact, and some of you all may have already heard this, the ICE, in case of an emergency, has been around for some time, and even been some first responders say that you should put these documents or copies of these documents in your freezer. And then on your freezer door, you should have a tag that says ICE. And that tells EMS, fire department, and police that your documents are in your freezer where they can get them. Now they're safe in there, and that way they can be found easily. So not only should you have the documents we talked about, but you should have your driver's license, social security cards, your medical cards, Medicare or Medicaid if you have it, your prescription drug coverage, list of medications, any pertinent healthcare information, and emergency contacts, including your providers and your doctors. You should have contact lists. Who's important that they need to get a hold of? Do you have a financial advisor? Do you have a CPA? Do you have an attorney? Do you have a religious advisor? Other people in your life that they need to get a hold of. You should have lists of bills. What kind of things need to be taken care of? There's nothing worse than getting something to show that a mortgage is being foreclosed on because we didn't know there was a mortgage company that had to be dealt with, or a car loan that had to be dealt with. Insurance benefits, life insurance, disability insurance, etc. Financial accounts that you have, including checking, savings, etc. And it keeps going. Your electrical devices, phones, etc., email. I'm not going to go all over this because you guys will have this to look at, but this is a great reference list of what kind of things you need to put together so that they're all in one place if something happens to you. And again, to finish out, if you're a business owner, you need to have stuff for your business. You need to have personal letters to loved ones. I've seen those. I think that's a great thing because we never know when we're going to have to say goodbye and whether we're going to have time to say goodbye. Any donor information and any funeral information. So I've spent a lot of time telling you guys what needs to be done, but unless you do it, it doesn't matter. So I love this statement. I was once told this: information without implementation is not only a waste of time, it's worse than a waste of time. So you spend an hour of your time learning about this, please do something about it and tell your family to do something about it. This is my favorite picture in the whole wide world. Please don't leave this webinar and only take your CEU credit and don't do something with it. Don't keep your head in the sand, because like Pablo Picasso said, only put off till tomorrow what you are willing to die having left undone. And this is not one of those things. So I have talked for a long time. I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to turn you back over to Sheila, and I'm going to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Okay. The first question comes from Antoinette. Why does Social Security refuse to accept the DPOA that the state of Texas had?
Say that again. You kind of broke on me, Sheila. Why do they refuse to accept what?
The DPOA. D as in dog. I don't know what that is.
A durable power of attorney.
Oh, sorry.
I wish I knew the answer to that, but I'm going to say the Social Security, just like any other agency and any other financial institution, they make their own rules and they accept what they want to accept and they don't want to accept. And so I don't think there's a clear answer to why they don't. They should, because if it's a decently drafted durable power of attorney, it should be good. But I would only say that somewhere in their rules, they have been told not to accept that. That's the only thing that I can even think of.
Okay, and this next question from Antoinette is actually, Fred, I have wondered this myself. I've just never asked you. Why do we need a Hipaa form if we have a medical power of attorney?
Okay, they serve two different forms. Now, some medical power of attorneys have Hipaa language in them, but your medical professionals usually aren't educated to look for that. So they're kind of told, okay, a medical power of attorney does this, Hipaa does this. And so they don't look inside the form and read it in detail to show that it actually gives Hipaa permissions within the medical power of attorney. But I always say that it's just easier to have both, so that one says, this is who I allow to make medical decisions for me, and this is who I allow to get medical information about me. And so that's really what the two purposes of those forms are. And yes, they go hand in hand, but it's just easier if you have two forms so that the medical professionals know what they're looking at.
Okay. Okay, this comes from Carolina. What about people that have IDD, intellectual and developmental disabilities, that were being cared for by a parent who dies? Do they require a guardianship, or can that be prepared by a parent before their death?
No, unfortunately, the parents cannot put things in place before they die. It does require a guardianship, even if they have a guardianship. So for instance, let's say mom and dad are guardians of a autistic child, or now an autistic adult, and mom and dad die, and they wanted another sibling to take over. That sibling would have to go back into court under the guardianship that they had and get appointed as a successor guardian. It's not automatic. So the easiest way to think about it is anytime you get the courts involved, the courts stay involved. And you can't do things just on your own after a court is involved. So it always requires going back to court and doing it. Now, it's not as difficult. I mean, you don't have to go through the full-blown process all over again, but you do have to go through a process. That process is even if the person moves. Let's say I have an autistic nephew and he moves from Texas to Arkansas. If he's under guardianship in Texas, that guardianship has to be transferred to Arkansas. So you have to go to court in Arkansas, and there's a process between Texas and Arkansas where they move it, but you can't just do it on your own. So it is a tedious, long process, and it always requires attorneys, and it always requires legal fees, and it's not inexpensive. So that's what I mean by these are expensive processes, because it's like they're never ending.
Okay, the next question is from Lori. I'm trying to get a mineral deed transferred from my mom to me. It's a very small residual check once a year. The gas company told me that we need to do a mineral deed transfer and to find a form off the internet to file at the courthouse. What do you suggest?
Yeah, that's the lousiest advice I've ever heard of. Mineral deeds are not easier, even if they're just small. Mineral royalties, mineral deeds, because there's all different types of it. We actually, in our firm, even have a company we use when we have a client that has a lot of mineral interest. We have a company that we use, so we want to make sure that it's done, because it's not just a mineral deed. There may be a division order. There may be there's all different kind of things involved. So if you need a referral to the company that we've used that helps us with these issues, I'll be more than happy to get that to you. You just reach out to Sheila and we can get you their information.
Okay. Now, Carolina has a very good question, and I do have an answer for this. Is there a place to refer my low-income families to someone to help them with guardianship that's affordable? Yes. There are places in Dallas, as a matter of fact, in Dallas County. Marty knows about this too. And then there's an agency, and then there's also an agency in Tarrant County as well.
Legal Aid of Northwest Texas handles the entire greater Metro DFW area. Legal Aid of Northwest Texas. If you want to email me, I'll be happy to send you a contact. There's a Legal Aid of Northwest Texas, pretty much a office in most of the counties that you can look up on the internet, but I can also get you the information on that if you need it.
Okay, next question is from Liz. Could you have multiple guardians to avoid having to go to court if one of the guardians are no longer able to serve?
No, the only time the court allows multiple guardians is if it's a husband and wife. So mom and dad, if they are married, they can be co-guardians of a disabled child that becomes an adult, or my wife and I can become guardians of my mom. So it's got to be a married couple. They can't have, so you can't have multiple guardians for like fallback. So not even me and my sister could be co-guardians of my mom, so that if I die, she can take care of it, whatever. It's not allowed. I don't know why, other than that's the way it's written in the Texas Estates Code under the guardianship laws.
Okay. Okay, now I see one here.
There's Sheila, there's one in the Q&A. I'll ask real quick while you're looking at those. Where can I get the death document?
I mean, your best bet on any of these documents I've talked about is to get an estate planning attorney to do them for you, because they need to be done right. And so I always say, don't just get an attorney, but get an estate planning attorney, a person that does this for a living, because these areas, and that's what makes me really angry about the internet, because the internet makes everybody believe it's simple, and it's not. I don't do this for a living because I don't have anything better to do. I do this for a living because this is a very complicated area of the law, and these documents have to be custom designed for the people that we design them for. And so make sure you go to an attorney who does this for a living. I wouldn't go to an estate planning attorney to get my bankruptcy done or my divorce done. You go to a bankruptcy attorney, you go to a family law attorney. The law has become so specialized in areas like medicine. You go to the person that takes care of that area of law.
This is really good from Diana. Diana says, your list of things to keep in your freezer seems really long. Wouldn't it be best to focus on health emergency info there? I was advised by EMS they look for a red emergency folder on the outside of the fridge. We are putting other docs that you list in another place known to the family. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think the big determination needs to be, what things do you think an emergency professional needs, a first responder needs, and what things does the family need? And those can go into two different places. So yes, I've heard a couple different things about putting it on your fridge, but I've also said you can buy like magnets that you stick on your fridge and your freezer, and then that most first responders I know of will look inside the freezer to look for that envelope. And so it's kind of a decision of what you think they need.
And Diana, yes, I will get you I will get that from Fred. She wants a reference to the mineral rights transfer firm, because we don't do that, right?
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, we help with some of it, but no, we usually refer that out.
So I can send that to you, Diana. But also the other thing I wanted to add, this, if you can see a little bit of this, I'm going to send you this as well. This is called the hospital emergency bag to bring with you. This is also a good thing to keep in, and it talks about the documents that Fred has already talked about, but it also talks about, you know how most people only think of having a hospital bag when you're pregnant and you're about ready to go into labor. We all thought about it then, but this talks about for seniors, what they need, the glasses, their earplug, or if they have a sleep mask, a robe, clean clothes, a book, magazine, or puzzle, whatever, any of this type stuff that is important to know that you're going to need for the hospital. This is a great thing to have. Or, I've had 3 friends in the last year have knee replacements. Yes, I am a senior myself, but I've had 3 friends that have had knee replacements. And so they knew it was scheduled. And they all 3 wound up being in the hospital a lot longer than they thought. So you see, this, I'm just telling you, this can come in very handy. So I thought I would send it to you anyway. It's from DocuBank. DocuBank sent this to us, but I thought it was very cool and very good information. So anyway, okay, now we've got a bunch more questions.
Desiree, if you could, I saw you raise your hand. If you could put your question or comment in the chat or Q&A, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Go ahead, Sheila, I'm sorry.
Okay, next question is from Liz. If you cannot get a guardianship for an adult disabled child, do you recommend some special kind or some kind of special needs trust?
Well, yes and yes. I mean, yes, you can get a guardianship for an adult child. We do special needs of guardianships all the time, so that when that person turns 18, the parents or somebody else can become their legal guardian. With parents who have a special needs child, we recommend that they start the process when that child is 17 and a half. So about 6 months before their 18th birthday, we start the process. Now, that guardianship is not nearly as difficult as a guardianship of a person with Alzheimer's, dementia, brain injury, that kind of stuff. But it is still a process. Now, yes, I always recommend that a special needs trust be set up for families with special needs children, because the worst thing that can happen for a special needs person is for them to inherit. If they inherit anything, they could lose their Medicaid and Social Security benefits. And you do not want to take a chance of them losing those governmental benefits. So a special needs trust is set up so that the money can be caught by that special needs trust, and it can be used for that special needs person's care, but it doesn't disqualify them. And so that can be done a number of different ways. Some people set up a standalone special needs trust, but other people set up a special needs trust within their trust. So like my trust has language in it that says, if I die and the money goes to my children, it can go into a special needs trust at that time. We also like in our heritage trusts, we have language in there that says, even if my child isn't special needs, I want that language in there, because I always say that I'm blessed to have a perfectly healthy daughter, but one car accident away and she might not be. And I don't want to take a chance of somebody being special needs at a later time and that disqualifying them from benefits. So you want to put in those precautions. I always say that in all the planning that we do, we pray for the best, but we plan for the worst. And so that includes special needs issues.
Well, and also, like in my case with my son that Fred brought up, Chad had multiple surgeries. He had a life-altering accident when he was 19. He ran out of gas and was trying to push his car off the road, and a lady hit him going 60 miles an hour. So he lost his leg, and he had many, many surgeries. Okay, well, while they're in surgery, and of course, we didn't have his documents. That's one of those things we learned the hard way. But while they're in surgery, obviously there's things that are going to come up, and they're going to have to come out, or he was in ICU for many, things like that you are going to have to, there's lots of times when these decisions have to be made, and that's why these documents are critical. And that's why after I came here, we started doing the college student thing because of what happened to me. You just don't think. You don't think. And like Fred said, the most dangerous thing, he usually says when we're speaking live, most dangerous thing that every one of us do every day is get in a car. And you just don't realize. You just don't realize how it can change your life. Or, you could have a horrible accident in another way, I know, but usually it's through a car. And so it's just a very sad situation, and you want to be protected. You want your loved ones protected, and you want to be protected as well. So, all right. Now, Liz says, Fred, thank you. So you can expand a bit on how you write that into a trust. Do you set up a special needs trust and list that as a beneficiary if the beneficiary is incapacitated, or do you do it a different way?
And this sounds, and I don't want to avoid questions, but this is a question that needs to be talked to in person. This is something that really needs more specific individual advice. So there's many, many ways to do it. And you want to make sure that you set it up the proper way for what your situation is.
Okay. Marty, do you see any more questions?
I don't. I see some comments about how how helpful this has been, and that's it. You know, again, like all of them, this has been incredible, Fred. We appreciate it greatly.
Thank you.
I think that being the case, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to, I put in the chat, I will create a link to the hospital list. But I thought I may already have that actually from one of the previous webinars we've done, but I'll create a link to the hospital list and send that out in the follow-up email with the, another link to Fred's slides, which I've put a couple of times in the chat today as well. Sheila, do you want to go over the CEUs one more time? Fred, if you could advance the slide, that would be great.
Now, real quick before I did notice that Lori McMillan had her hand raised. So again, Lori, if you have a question, if you could type it in while Sheila's finishing up, we can maybe answer that question before we finish.
I didn't see that. Okay, yes, please. Like we said earlier, there are 3 documents this time. There is a conflict of interest, because obviously we do this for a living, but this is strictly educational, So because education is our primary core value, number 1, but secondly, an educated public is much better for all of us. I wish I had this before Chad had his accident. Clearly it would have gone a lot differently for us had we done that. And for your mom or for anybody, everyone needs this. Everyone needs this situation, because, or this information, no matter what age you are, because unfortunately things do happen that we are beyond your control. But for you professionals, the eval and the sign-in sheet are what I need back, scanned back. The conflict of interest form is for your records. But the eval and the sign-in sheet, please send those back to me, scan them in, send them back to me, and then I will jet your certificate very, very, very quickly. Okay. Faye wants to know, where did we get the information about what first responders you have on the fridge? One of the attorneys here, senior attorney Susan, and I don't know if you've met Susan, her husband was a first responder for many years. He retired as a firefighter, but Fred was a police officer before. So we've had it from both sides.
And I also understand that some departments will provide, I think Arlington Fire Department has something they give the people in this regard. So you may want to check with your fire department in the area you live and see if they have something that they can give you.
Also, Plano does, because one of the fine senior living places that we toured the other day gave us this, and they give this to all their residents. And I hope you can see this. See, isn't that cool? So you can put this on your fridge here on the front of your fridge, because it's magnet on the back. And then it tells them where every document they need is.
Great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now, I don't know if all of the other departments do this. I have no idea, but I know that those 2 do. So.
Excellent. Very, very good. Thank you all once again. I want to remind you all that when you sign off, there should be an evaluation form for us that we need you to fill out as well. That should pop up in Google Forms. If you'd fill that out, that would be very, very helpful. And I sincerely appreciate Haiman+Hogue. If you need legal advice, we're not allowed to send you to any one place. This is for information services, but we appreciate them doing this. And if you'd like to reach out to them, that's great. If you'd like some more attorney options, I could try to figure that out for you as well if you'd like to send me that. But thank you again, Fred. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so very much. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it greatly, and look forward to, if we could flip out one more slide, because the next presentation is on Healthcare Code of Conduct and Ethical Behavior on February 24th. We hope you join us then, and very soon we'll have some information out on what we're going to do in March as well. Thank you again, and you all have a great day.
Thank you, guys. God bless everybody.